Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 173 of the Peak of Serenity podcast. I am, as always, one of your hosts, emallson, and joining me, we have my co host, Anomoly.
Hello.
And we're having some slight technical issues today, so this is not getting streamed. This is just a local recording because, I don't know, my ISP hates me. Um,
As it
hopefully,
does.
hopefully that dissipates because that would suck. But yeah, so today we got a lot more to talk about for 10.2. Raid testing started. I did all the raid testing. I don't know if you did any.
Unfortunately, no. It's funny. Raid testing in the afternoons is always rough because Thursdays and number one, Friday afternoons tough. It's a weekend here, but then Thursdays I have like work calls until
Yeah,
5 o'clock Eastern, so it's like right in the middle of yeah.
yeah.
If it was Monday and Tuesday, I could probably make it, but yeah, end of the week just sucks.
And then we have more class tuning. They renamed the Windwalker set bonus too. I just want to throw that out there. And then, talk more about Mythic Plus stuff that's coming in the patch and other catalysts and things like that. But before
Mhm.
we get into all of that, how was your raid this week?
Amazing. We actually finish before our break. So
Oh my
we raid for
gosh.
4 hours typically on like Tuesday, Thursday. And so we take a break right around 10 and 10 p.m. and we were done. I think we killed Magmarax at like 10:05. So
Nice.
like basically on the last poll before break, we killed Magmarax. So yeah, no, it was a great um it was a great night. It's funny, we killed Sarkarath like I think after like two polls.
Nice.
Um which was awesome. We had a priest literally we had an early pull. So someone pulled early. I think like
Yep.
Shroud ran out earlier than
Classic.
our timer. And then a priest died because like they were in the middle of their ramp or something. And didn't take the portal over and still killed it. Like it was literally our only death.
Nice.
And so this is how crazy. If people don't die, we four healed it and killed it before like that second mass dispel you do of
Yeah.
like the things in P3. So like yeah, we just absolutely crushed the boss. If like no one dies, after P1, like it's honestly a free
Yeah.
kill. So
Yeah.
but no, it had a great week. We got a new Rashox, which was good. I actually got it surprisingly.
Nice.
So I
Too
am
bad
down to
that's getting
literally
nerfed.
yeah, well, to be fair, even with the nerf, it's still a
Really
top
good.
three trinket. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. We don't know about the final tuning in 10.2 trinkets, right? But even with the nerf, like if the nerf went live today, you'd still equip it. It's still the best one of the. I think it's still the best trinket for Mistweaver at least, even with the nerf. So, but no,
Okay.
yeah. So we
Okay.
got a Rashix, which is good for me. So I'm down to only need a Neltharian's trinket, and then is it Nelf? Does Nelf drop the leather gloves? Whoever drops the 450 gloves, I need a pair of
I think
those.
it's I think it's Sargreth that
Sark, yeah,
does.
might be Sark.
That's
But in any
that's the
event,
only piece I need as well. And I mean,
yeah,
technically, I could use the Neltharian ring, the high crit, low haste ring, just
yeah,
for eye level, basically. I don't think it's actually better than a 447 with better stats, but it's 450. So if I want to max out that eye level number, I do
that is
need that
true.
one too.
That
Actually,
is
wait,
true.
I may have gotten it this week. Nobody wanted it.
But
Anyway,
yeah, no,
we
yeah, raid went well. How was yours? Sorry.
we almost one night cleared.
Oh, nice.
It's one of those things. Now Therian took us an hour, Sarkar took us an hour, everything else like we pulled Magmarax with 10 minutes left in raid and got to the end, wiped at 15%,
Mm-hmm.
and then just like the next pull was like technically before raid ended, and we got a minute in and somebody just didn't soak. And then we just
Gotcha.
like we're either gonna not come back Sunday because it's just Memorex, or we're gonna go back. And we ended up deciding to go back because there's a bunch of rerolls that we get an extra vault slot from it, and so we want to let them get that
Gotcha.
extra vault slot. Um, so, but yeah, we did. We've been like systematically dropping healers on everything.
Okay.
Um, so like to give you a sense of what I mean by that, we the most healers we run on anything is three.
Okay.
We two heal Amalgamation Chamber and one heal Assaulted as a Collie.
Yeah, that's what we do. That also. Yeah.
And like the big thing for us this week is Skarn was the last boss that we hadn't done that on. We
Mm-hmm.
switched from 3 tank 4 heal to 2 tank, 3 heal, and shaved over a minute off of our kill time.
Nice,
That
nice.
fight is so free if you just have this single target boss DPS
Yeah,
to just kill it.
to delete it. Yeah,
Like you just
yeah.
kill it
We
before the traps are an issue.
That's fair. Yeah, we should. I mean, I am so. This is where like me personally and like the guild, I think are a little bit at odds. Like I hate lowering healers. Like I'll lower
Uh,
them to like a safe amount. Like four, like I think we 4 heal everything but the two you mentioned. Zakali we 1 heal.
yeah,
Um, and that is an experience. And then like amalgamation chamber we 2 heal, but everything else is generally 3 or 4. I think we might 3 heal a bunch of the other stuff. But once we hit like Zakarn, Magmarax, Nelth, and Sark, it's all 4 heals.
yeah,
And it's honestly just because like for me, like it's fun to parse as a healer, but it's also unfun to wipe and like relearn cooldowns and stuff like that.
yeah,
Where like we generally we've been lucky enough that once we hit farm, we generally have a locked set of healer. Like our healer roster doesn't change much,
yeah.
and so it's literally like you do the same thing every week. So it's
We're shuffling stuff
fairly
around
consistent.
constantly, and it's actually I told our healers this week we're done shuffling stuff for the rest of the tier,
Yeah,
except for like cases where like you haven't gotten the boss kill yet, or for people rerolling. Like,
yeah,
we're gonna have to like our Holy Paladin is looking at rerolling to Mistweaver. Our one of our Resto Druids is looking at rerolling either to Priest or to Holy Paladin, depending on what our Holy Paladin does.
yeah.
And so there's just some things like that, and we need to get them in on like hard bosses that are going to pressure them. It's no good to just practice on Kazara and Amalgamation Chamber.
Yeah, exactly. When there's no healing. So no,
Um,
but yeah. Oh, sorry.
but yeah, like Sarkareth, I think actually does get easier to kill if you make it through phase 1 with 3 healers, because we don't even do the second ascension. Like the boss
Oh, okay.
dies.
Yeah.
Um, well, we almost 3-shot Sarkareth this week, and it just came down to somebody messing up a bomb, right? That's
Yeah.
actually like last week we were wiping a bunch to phase 1, and we cleaned all of that up. We barely wiped to phase 1 this week.
Hmm.
All of our phase 1 wipes total like 5 minutes of time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, and then we just like wiped in phase 3 over and over again because of people messing up bombs, and there's no amount of extra healing is going to make up for people messing up bombs.
No, no, no. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
know that every tick of the bomb when it explodes applies Oblivion? Because I did
I
not.
did not know that. I did not know that.
So even if you manage to heal through it, everybody goes like +5 stacks of Oblivion. And if they weren't
Yeah.
already going downstairs, they would be going downstairs.
Yeah. Oh, maybe I did know that because like when we wipe to that, we have yeah, we have random holes everywhere and people sort of freak out. But yeah.
Yeah,
Um
that's
yeah,
why.
no, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean I don't maybe we'll start to lower the number of healers. It's just for me, I just hate doing that. And generally if that happens, I'll just sit because it's like I don't want to deal with relaying
Yeah,
anything. Just lazy. Um
I
but cool,
think
yeah, no, it's awesome. Oh,
I
sorry.
think our farms would be generally cleaner if we shuffled people around a lot less. We change people around a lot. Our comps are very different from week to week.
Yeah, no, we are fairly DPS wise they can be different, but healing wise it's almost always the same four. Same four classes. Like we might swap out. We have one person who loves alt, so like he'll bring in like a druid or mains a priest or a preservation evoker, right? So like
Yeah,
they'll swap around, but it's only ever one, and like typically it's not on like a Rashok, right? He'll play his priest on Rashok just
yeah.
because it's just more consistent. So or
Yeah,
on
and like right now we have 2 former DPS on our healing roster, so we do take advantage of the fact that they can just play DPS,
Mhm.
right? Like when we're 3 healing
Yeah.
something, it doesn't mean that they necessarily have to be out. They can be in, but as a DPS, so it makes the the vault Jenga a little bit easier to manage.
No, that's
But
fair. That's fair.
yeah, that's
Cool.
right this week. Uh, Before we start talking about Mythic Plus and raid testing stuff, is there stuff that you wanted to go over from this past week?
Yeah, there was basically two things I wanted to talk about before we got into the main topic. So first is the Secrets of Azeroth event has finished. So if you haven't been following along to this, it's basically started about 2 weeks ago. Blizzard released a clue in game once a day, and you basically had to figure it out, or you just waited for Wowhead or the Secrets Discord to tell you how to do it. But if you went through all of it, you got some cool transmog stuff, and I think you get a mount, and a couple other things like an achievement. So it was a fun little secrets event. It was cool that they sort of had you jump around. I'd say the only downside of the entire event was the fact that my inventory is full of stuff, like
Yeah,
notes of like from the quests or whatever that I now have to get rid of manually. But other than that, it was a fun event. They did that, which was an in-game quest thing, and then also it's sort of like an AR, not a true ARG, but like the idea of like an in like other sources of information. There was also other secrets that were strewn about the world to sort of find and loot, and they'd like hide them in like social media posts of like a certain like area of the world. And if you went there and searched around, you found like a little dirt pile you could loot like some stuff up
that's
from the community
interesting.
event. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think there's 17 or 18 of those things you could do. I did all those too. So it's fun. It was nice little secrets stuff that came into the game. I've always enjoyed this stuff, but yeah, event's over, so you can go to Wowhead. They have a huge guide on how to do all 14 days. You can do all 14 days, still get the same achievements and translogs, all that stuff. So
There's
still live.
the only thing you can't get is I think the feat of strength for the Mimiron's jump jets thing. They did extend
Exactly.
that. That this happened last week. It got discovered, and then it came out that it was going to be like you had 24 hours to do it.
Hmm.
Um, but it wasn't all the time that you could do it. I guess I don't know. I don't fully
You
understand.
had to,
I did do it. I
yeah.
they extended it for another 36 hours, and I went and did it.
Yeah, you just had to power up something in Valdrakken. So if you
Yeah,
basically were part of the power up event, you got the feat of strength. And once you powered it up, you could get the final piece of, or really it was to put the three other pieces you had looted the 3 days previously together to make the mount
yeah.
from Miram's jump jet. Yeah.
Which you don't have to have done those previous three pieces. You didn't need to go and do any of the other stuff. So I
Yeah.
didn't. I just got the feat of strength and just like moved on.
Nice. You didn't have to do much actually with the event either. You could just kill like the final mob of each day and you got
Yeah.
to loot the item. Um so yeah. Yeah, no, that was a fun little event they put in. But yeah, if you like secrets, it's done. You can go check it out, do it all that fun stuff. It'll be cool. And then the other thing I want to touch on was just really some quick hot fixes. So it's not I don't think we're going to talk about this in the main topics, but they did do a couple of hot fixes within 10.2 to actually some of our set bonuses, which is really I'm going to talk about. So for Windwalker, they have renamed the buff that is granted from Ebontoes to Blackout Reinforcement. A less fun name, but maybe I don't know, Ebontoes, maybe a little too, we'll say
Mimi.
like on the nose, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, Blackout Reinforcement, they renamed the buff. You get no functional changes, it seems like. It's really just a renaming um of that. And they did, which I didn't put this in the notes because I couldn't particularly find this when I was doing this, but they did change the Mistweaver 2 set and 4 set. So you remember we talked about
Oh,
it a little bit last week where
the
the
two
Mistweaver
set
2
is
set.
in the notes.
Okay. Um, so yeah, the 2 set, they basically changed it. So previously it was anytime Renewing Mist is applied to a target, essentially, whether that's through a jump or a direct cast, you also applied Chi Harmony, which when we did the napkin math and not really napkin math, when they mathed it all out and did a bunch of the work to it, the 2 piece plus 4 piece is like a 30-ish% healing increase. Um,
Yeah. Too
which is
good.
an absolute a massive number for a tier set. So what they ended up changing this week was the Chi Harmony, the buff from the 2 piece, is only applied on targets you are casting Renewing Mist on, or the Renewing Mist is being applied through um, Rapid Diffusion, which is like Rising Sun Kick or Enveloping Mist that do it like that. So you get Chi Harmony applied to targets, and that it no longer applies when Renewing Mist jumps to a new target
Okay.
through like that functionality in it. So you'll have slightly less Chi Harmonies, which is fine, I'll say. Then they also did, in conjunction with this, change the 4 piece to store 20% of the healing done versus 15% of the healing done. So you get a little bit of a boost to the explosion at the end of Chi Harmony now. It'll be 20% of the healing you do gets sort of put into that buff and then
Yeah.
explode on all your renewing mist targets. So with those two changes, it generally drops to, I think they said roughly about a 12% HPS increase, 12 to 14,
That's a little
which is
more
more in line
reasonable. Yeah.
with what we expect. There's still one thing that we are so there is a couple of bugs with it, namely not every healing spell that we have feeds into the four-piece Chi Harmony
Yep.
healing. So there is a large list of things that don't feed into it. We've sent to the developers. Hopefully we see that fixed. We'll see like Invigorating Mist, which is the cleave healing from Renewing Mist, is one thing that I think currently does not feed into it, which is interesting, but main target Vivify heals do. So we're thinking it's just an issue with the way they've set up the spells. But yeah, so changes already we're seeing in the power, at least of the Mistweaver 2 and 4 set, which to be fair, still very powerful, although I think a lot of people are not exactly excited with how it's working out because it yeah. It's some interesting gameplay to get the most out of it, which basically means you end up just spamming a single target after you put up Chi Harmony, and hopefully during your spread. So it's yeah, it is what it is. But
Yeah.
we'll see what any other changes they make there. But yeah, some good updates there. And I don't think there was no spell changes. I think across the board for monks that I remember
Nope.
seeing. So
Nothing for Brewmaster at all, which is broadly speaking fine. I think that I have like a few main wishes, and they're primarily all quality of life stuff, right? Like I want Celestial Brew to be off the GCD. Please
mhm.
take it off the GCD. And like press the advantage would be nice if it didn't have this awkward like negative interaction with spinning crane kick. It's such a trap where like spinning crane kick is like, oh, I don't have anything to push this GCD. I can just like push spinning crane kick. Don't do it on single target. Don't do it on light AOE. Also, don't do it. Like only on very large AOE basically because you skip auto attacks, and that makes your press the advantage talent worse
Yeah.
for pushing buttons. And it's like part of the intention of the press the advantage talent, I think, is to make it so you don't have as many buttons to push, but you like having a button where pushing it is negative DPS
Yeah.
is
It's
probably not ideal.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not the fun. It's not the fun way, particularly when it's maybe not fully understood by like the typical like rate like population of
Yeah,
players, right?
you
Like
wouldn't know it just from reading the spinning crane kick tooltip and the press the advantage tooltip that pushing spinning
yeah.
crane kick hurts your press the advantage.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, that's a little yeah, it kind of stinks. But no, I mean I think we're seeing what we'll probably have a section on, on the podcast next couple of weeks as they continue to sort of hot fix and change things
yeah.
um across the board. So um but cool. Maybe we'll start to get into some of the topics we have for today, starting to recap
Yeah, you want to jump
the
into
10.2.
the Mythic Plus stuff so that we don't fall too far behind on that?
Yeah, no, that's fair. So Mythic Plus. So with the 10.2 PTR, they also released the season 3 dungeon pool. So I'm just gonna read through this and sort of, we can talk about the one, maybe our highlights. So we've got, of course, whatever the new raid is. What is it called?
Dawn of the
Uh,
Infinite.
Dawn of the Infinite, sorry. So we have Dawn of the Infinite, 2 dungeons, of course, like any mega dungeon, split it in half, front half, back half. So we have Galakron's Fall as one, and then Morazan's Rise as the other. So Dawn of the Infinites is 2 of these 8 dungeons. We then bring back some BFA favorites in Atal Dazar and Waycrest Manor, which is interesting. We then get Blackrook Hold and Darkheart Thicket. I haven't thought about Blackrook Hold in years, but Darkheart
Oh,
Thicket, I'm a
you didn't
fan.
do Legion time walking spam.
I did not. No, no. And then we finish up with Everbloom, which I mean, I the only thing I remember about Everbloom is we used to do some wild skips in there before they changed a lot of the
Yeah,
geometry.
most of the geometry skips have been fixed, so
Yeah,
yeah.
unfortunate. And then finally, Throne of the Tides, which is not what I was expecting, but that's a throwback, we'll say.
Yeah, of all the Cataclysm dungeons, why that one?
I don't know. It's an interesting one. I wonder if in Mythic Plus you have to clear the right guy,
Oh,
the one
almost
that
certainly.
the one that sits on your head, because I haven't done that in years. Like
Yeah,
every Throne of the Tides groups never goes that way.
yeah. Uh, I mean, we'll see. We will see, I guess, if they actually require
Yeah.
that one. It could just be that that wing is basically extra trash, and that boss is just not active.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, we'll see. So I mean, it's a wide ranging. They did something I didn't think they would do, which was my thought process. At least two of these dungeons, outside of Dawn of the Infinite, which I think we knew was going to be
Yeah.
two of the eight, right? I thought there'd be two dungeons from Dragonflight in
Yeah.
in the pool.
Me too.
I thought there'd be four, and then they'd sort of pick out four. But it seems like what they're doing is they're just, hey, you get to do Mythic Plus dungeons in the current expansion for season one and season two, and then season three. And maybe, if we see a season four, is going to be dungeons from all over their older expansions, which is cool. I mean, to be fair, in BFA, Atal Dazar, I'm fine with Waycrest Manor.
They did.
Absolutely hate it. But yeah, we could talk about the change to Waycrest, which is good.
Yeah. So Waycrest Manor, they changed it so all the doors are always open. So you don't have the thing. If you remember in BFA, you would do the first like big pull at the start of Waycrest Manor in the first room. You'd go up the stairs and you'd check if the door on the left was open. And if
Right.
it was, you were on the easy route. And if it wasn't, you were on the hard route. And I know that's different for like very high keys. People were like always going right if they could. And one
Yeah.
of the right doors was basically always open, and they would do some wild pulls on that side. That's not the experience that most people had with that dungeon, right?
Yeah.
For most people, going left was the easy way, and that was like what you expected. And going right was like, oh no, what do we do? Because the left door was only closed like 20 or 30% of the time.
Yeah.
So people just like planned on that one being open, and it all just fell apart if it wasn't.
And
Um,
one thing I remember too, just about the right door being open, was that people always tried to skip. I feel like people tried to skip more trash when the right door was open
yeah,
first,
you try
and
to
so it
skip
was
that
like,
room with the hunters in it.
exactly, and like, I'd say in my pug groups, like, it was honestly like a 60-40 success chance. So like most
Yeah,
of the time we made it through, but those 40% times you didn't, was like you were pulling that trash plus the trash in the hallway
yeah, yeah,
afterwards, and it just was like not a good
yeah.
situation.
This
So
place also Sanguine Nightmare.
the visibility, like, because you're in hallways the entire time. It's
Yeah,
very visibility, like, well, not visibility, maybe. What I'm saying is like cameras, like the camera work is
yeah,
is really rough. So,
yeah,
but with all the doors open, I think there'll be a route that people sort of take, which is fun. I mean, the dungeon itself is a really cool like environment. I'll say it's just an
yeah,
old mansion, and there's like not secret doors, but there's like different doors in the basement. There's multiple ways to get at certain bosses, like multiple sort of routes you could take. So
yeah.
it's a cool layout for an environment. It's just like the WoW camera was not meant to be in a
In a
defined,
tight
like,
hallway.
confined
Yeah,
space. Yeah.
I like Waycrest on the whole. So like I'm perfectly happy to see it come back. A lot of the issues that we had with Waycrest were issues shared with Toldagor as well, like pulling through walls and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, a good number of those were actually related to Azerite. It was always just jank as hell. Some of them were things like rogues, had a number of spells they could pull through walls.
Hmm.
Um, and also Rushing Jade Wind, which is a fun one. If you hug too close to a couple of the walls, you can pull things through them. Um, but on the whole, I think it'll be a fun thing. And it may just be a dungeon. Like, if the Rushing Jade Wind stuff still happens, either, I don't remember how severe it was, if it was just like this one spot next to the pig boss, or if it was actually endemic and I just got used to it. Uh,
Yeah, I think the Walpole stuff was really, it was that area that was really bad, and then getting into the basement sometimes was
mhm.
rough. Um for like either pulling through walls or like making inadvertent pulls of like things you didn't really need. So
Yeah.
um but no, yeah, it's cool to have back. And then I think the other one, Atal Dazar, other BFA dungeon. Again, if you didn't play during this time, that was if you're doing high keys, that was the snap dungeon. It's really where snapping
Yes.
became a big thing, where you could essentially, if you're not familiar with snapping, basically what ends up happening is you have your tank stand in a area that's not easily,
Oh, I wish I had the Angry Toast
path,
Rod pulled
yeah,
up.
pathing wise to where the tank is standing. You basically misdirect the mobs to the tank, and instead of them slowly moving to the tank, they all snap directly on top of the tank, all grouped up nice and close. Which meant like AoE stuns are easy to do, like you just AoE everything down. So like basically Ataldazar became the snap dungeon, where like you would do snaps in specific points of the dungeon and pull like massive trash packs on top of it and
Yeah.
AoE it all down. So they fixed that basically, sort of. So they fixed it in a way where like as long as your tank is the uh only one aggroing the mobs, they will still snap. But if anyone else has aggro before the snap occurs or is in combat with the mobs, it doesn't seem like it's working. So
Which means things like Prayer of Mending, Rejuvenation,
yeah,
Renewing
yeah,
Mist, all break it. Beacon of
exactly.
Light
So
also in there. Although I don't think I think they play like the AoE beacon in keys.
yeah, Beacon of Virtue or whatever that puts
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So I mean it's some minor changes they're doing. They also did do a change that I'm extremely happy for, which is they changed the trash before Volcal. Which, if you don't remember this trash, this was the trash everyone skipped,
Yeah,
and the
you didn't
reason
do
you
this
skipped
trash.
it, you always skip this trash, even if it was a death skip, you would let like your tank run off and die, and then you'd res them, right? But the reason it was so bad is because they had these reanimated honor guards, which were just awful to deal with, like
Yeah.
just unfun mobs, tons of AoE damage on the group. And so they basically the reason you skipped it is one of those packs had two of those honor guards in it.
Yeah.
They've changed it. There's only a single one in every pack, so it's still skip worthy trash, but the idea is you don't have to deal with two of those honor
Yeah.
guards, just
It's
one.
probably
So
not worth doing a death skip anymore for that.
no.
But the other thing to remember is that BFA was like the era of the rogue skip,
Yeah,
right? Like
and they had
Shroud.
an affix that was just a rogue skip,
Right. At the end of the
and that
expansion,
was
they
it.
just said, all right, fine, we give up. You can all have your rogue skips.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah.
Yeah.
Atal is going to be an interesting one to have come back. I had missed the honor guard change. That's a really good change. Um, we'll see though.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see if they do some other like there. Like unfortunately like other than Ataldazar and Waycrest, every other dungeon on this list, like the older ones, I don't really remember. Like Everbloom, I remember the geometry skips, but I don't remember
Yeah,
the actual mob, so I don't
yeah.
know if those other
I've
polls are
I
bad.
have a lot of strong memories of Throne of the Tides, and they are not great. So
That's I mean, well, I think Throne of the Tides was the trash going to the second and third boss that would put the poison puddles on the ground.
yes,
I remember that being extremely like annoying as a healer because if you stood in that for any more than one tick, you essentially died. Like if you took
yeah,
two ticks,
you were
you were
dead.
low enough that like
Yeah.
incidental damage came in. Yeah. And even
Um,
that second boss that like after you kill the Naga and you come back out and you have to do the faceless one, that faceless one was fairly difficult at the time. I want to remember just a
yeah.
lot of like single target damage. So
And then the final boss is just slow, right? Like you
well,
have
because
to do
it's like
that
the
long
ad phase
phase
in the
one,
beginning. Yeah.
yeah, and then you do the big phase, and there's nothing that really happens in the big phase. You just DPS the boss.
Yeah, I don't remember if it had any mechanics. I just know you get really big, and I remember people at the time having some targeting issues
Yeah,
because like the boss is like stuck to
outside.
the wall, yeah, like
Yeah.
outside the wall or whatever. So, yeah,
Um,
Throne of the Tides will be interesting. The Gauntlet will be fun to get through.
I wouldn't call
Um,
it fun.
it's Gauntlet.
Um,
Everybody loves a good Gauntlet.
the Legion dungeons though, Blackheart Cold and Darkheart Ticket are both dungeons that had a lot of issues with one shots.
Hmm.
Specifically, the second boss of Blackheart Cold, the Demon Hunter boss, um, that the ticks from the fire would basically one shot you, especially in combination with the damage done by the boss charging around. So the thing that developed is people would bait them in a certain way and move as soon as the boss started moving towards you. And it's
Yeah,
not a very big window to avoid the damage, but you could avoid the damage from them hitting you and also the fire damage. So it went from one shotting you to doing zero damage. And if you could do that, then you could do this boss on any key level, basically.
gotcha.
Um, so that was a big issue. And then like the third boss was not that much of an issue. Brewmaster, third boss, actually quite a bit of fun. This is the big like I don't know if it's like an ogre, whatever it is, boss. Um, you can dodge or could. I don't know if you still can. Could dodge the charge, which was this
Oh,
great chicken and cat and mouse game where like you would just like I have 8 stacks of the charge debuff. If I ever get hit, I'm dead. Just
yeah,
like
yeah,
nothing
yeah.
saving me. I'm just dead. But if you keep dodging it, nobody takes any damage.
Nice, nice.
Uh,
Yeah, I don't remember Blackrock Hold very well.
and then
Um, yeah, Dark Heart Thicket's the final one, right?
Dark Heart Ticket, yeah, is the final boss just absolutely one-shotting people. And they fixed that in large part during Legion Time Walking, because it was actually a
Mhm.
problem at way lower key levels than the like Black or Cold one-shotting issues.
Yeah.
Um, but that was the big one. The stupid dragon boss is going to be a pug nightmare again, because
Mhm.
what pugs do is they get pushed back into the eggs, spawn a bunch of dragonlings, and then the dragonlings wipe you. And what a good group does is pull 0 of them, and then the boss is trivial. I mean,
Yeah,
not
exactly,
trivial,
yeah.
but like way like it's a completely different game. Uh,
Yeah. No, it'll be fun to. I mean, I'm glad they're bringing back all these older dungeons, so it'll be fun to get back in there and mess around. But I was not expecting this. The other thing too is WoW had posted the timers for all these dungeons. They're lo- they're
there's
long
four
timers.
39-minute timers. That's so both of the Dawn of the Infinites have 39-minute timers. Waycrest Manor and Blackrock Hold. Everbloom is 35 minutes, which everybody remembers Everbloom being really quick, but that's because in WoD you didn't do 99% of the dungeon.
Yeah, you
you
skipped it
you
all.
skipped it. And then Atal, Darkheart, and Throne of Tides are all 30-minute dungeons.
Throne of Tides is a 30-minute dungeon. Almost makes me feel like you don't do that one right
Yeah,
boss.
that's
Like I
kind
feel
of
like you
what I was
just
thinking.
yeah, because to get up, back down, and then
But then
like
again,
to
it's
each
not a
side
very
seems
big dungeon. Like if you think of Temple of the Jade
true.
Serpent, right? It's kind of the same layout.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Um, and that was not a long dungeon.
No. No, you're that's fair. I think the only difference between Temple and this is that when you backtracked in Temple, you weren't backtracking into trash. And like
Yeah, and you had the
in
speed
this
buff from the water boss, right?
yeah, so like like crossing Jade wasn't as bad as like with this one
Yeah,
you'll yeah, and even getting back down from up top, if you take the teleporter, that still puts you at the start of the entrance, start of the instant. So it's like
yeah,
a you still have that secondary run. So
yeah.
yeah. Oh, that another. There's two gauntlets in that dungeon. I forgot.
Oh
There's
yeah.
the opening one to the first
I had blocked that out of
intersection,
my
and yeah,
memory.
yeah. But no, it'll be fine. I mean, I'm excited for these. To be fair, like I'm not typically excited about Mythic Plus, but like the nice part is Ataldazar and Waycrest hit like when I was doing BFA, I still had a bunch of buddies, like real life friends that were playing, and so
Yeah,
like we did a ton of Mythic Plus. So like
yeah.
those dungeons, and I was actually tanking, which is always an interesting experience. So like those dungeons had a lot of fun of like just like memories and stuff like that. So it'd be cool to get back in it and maybe I'll start pushing maybe I'll push rating in season 3. So
I started to this season, and then like the aug changes, like augmentation
yeah.
coming in, and suddenly the rating went from like 3100 to 3450,
Yeah.
and it's like I
I don't want
can't
to do this.
be asked to do that many additional keys.
Yeah. Yeah. The only I guess maybe final Mythic Plus thing is they did release the Great Vault like level key level to loot conversion. And so it looks like to get a Mythic track item next season, you'll have to do at least an 18. So this is a 2, well, I guess did they add Mythic track to current season? It's 16
They did.
still?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a 2 key level increase to get a mythic track item next season. So keep that in mind. You have to be doing 18s to get a mythic track item from your vault moving forward. So
Um,
um,
that said, so your hero track items can go up to what's going to be 483, which is halfway through the mythic track. So they're not like dead. They're 6 eye levels lower, which is
yeah.
obviously you want when you have the opportunity to take something that is 6 eye levels higher, you should take it. But it's a little bit smoother progression between these,
Hmm.
right? Um, so we'll see how it all pans out. But yeah, the other thing is that end of Keystone drop caps out at 19, which I
Yep.
believe is what it capped out at this season as well. That stopped mattering as much with the freeness of all of the aspect crests.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but the early season doing 19s, if you can, will save you crests because they come with an extra upgrade on them. The hero track starts at key level 17, though, so that's like a key level lower than your actual like Great Vault target,
Yeah.
which is a little awkward, but you know, I guess you get one or you get a couple 18s done, and then you do like 17s and you upgrade them, or you just jam 20s all week like a gamer.
That is also the plan. That's also something you could do.
Which,
So
keep in mind, like a lot of people did that this season. We're going up an extra 13 eye level, so there's going to be a little bit more of a curve.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, all in all, I think Mythic Plus looks good. Dungeons look fun. Of all of them, I don't think there's any. I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any that I'm not excited for. Maybe Waycrest might be the only one, but no, it'll be fun. Season 3 coming in with all new dungeons. So um, cool. So then I think the other thing that we wanted to talk about this week was they did start. I guess they did start and also release the raid testing schedule. So they released the raid testing schedule for the next, like, I think it's like 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So what they're testing on each day, which includes a mixture of heroic, normal, mythic, and raid finder. Noticeably missing from the PTR testing, which I think is a trend we're seeing, is Fryak. Fryak? Is that how you say that? Fryak.
Iraq.
Fyrak. Fyrak not going to be tested, which is consistent with the last boss or bosses of the previous raid tiers not being on PTR. So we kicked it off this week with some heroic testing. We got on Thursday Gnarlroot and Igira. Igira the
Igira.
Cruel.
Yeah.
Igira the Cruel. And then Friday was Council of Dreams and Smolderon. So maybe I'll turn this over to you. How was raid testing this week? How'd it go?
Raid testing was pretty good. The biggest issue was definitely lag, and it wasn't lag in like the sense of normal PTR lag. If you've ever done raid testing, you've run into just the fact that it isn't as smooth as a regular server.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, there's a couple of things. So there's a trinket that was just like applying a buff to you multiple times a tick, not a second, a tick of the server. And so a bunch of people were using that because it was one of the most powerful trinkets based on early data. And that would absolutely lag out the server.
Gotcha.
So they actually,
that's nice of them.
Fairly unprecedented. They did a server warning to say, please take off this trinket, it's killing the servers.
Nice.
And then the other thing is BM Hunter was causing lag. Specifically, they recoded some stuff with their dire beasts, I guess. And
Gotcha.
in order to support like their tier set lets dire beast kill command. So they needed some like internal changes to let that happen, and that meant any dire beasts would like lag out the server.
Gotcha. Interesting.
So once we worked through all of that, raid testing went fine. Like, so the bosses tested this week, Gnarlroot and Igira are the first two bosses. They are actually like back to back in the instance physically. Like you're in the Gnarlroot room, and then when you kill him, the gate opens and there's Igira just past the gate.
Nice.
I felt really silly running back to the teleporter, getting teleported, and going, wait a minute. I'm in the same place.
I made it 12 feet. I made it 12 feet forward for some reason.
Yeah. The bosses so far though, I think generally seem good. Gnarlroot seems like a fine first boss. Not super complicated. Does not have the messiness of Kazara in terms of like puggability, where people just not doing the right thing with lasers can just wipe the group, right? That's not really an issue on Heroic right now, but like week 1 Heroic pugging, that was absolutely a thing. Now if you try to do Mythic pugging, some of those Mythic pugs will just not be able to do it because they'll run the lasers over the stuff on the floor and just like, 600k damage to the raid. What can you do? So it doesn't have that going on, which is nice. Generally, it's like a kind of two-phase fight, and it has a damage amp on it, which I think people kind of like. So you do this thing where you have a bunch of... It's got big AoE. There's a bunch of like lashers that spawn. You get to control when you spawn them. You can choose to not spawn them, and then like all stack at a Spirit Link and not die when they all spawn at once. Which is what we actually did at the end of the testing. Is we had them all spawn at once. stood in Darkness and Barrier and AMZ. We didn't have a Spirit Link, so we didn't use that.
Yeah.
And just like had a Boomkin and a Deflection Warlock just AoE the crap out of them, while everybody else did the intermission mechanic, which is to catch falling embers, set yourself on fire, and then go light the tree on fire, run around lighting the tree on fire, and when the tree is fully on fire, it becomes vulnerable and you get a double damage phase.
Okay.
And then it all loops from there. So like the fight seems fine. Seems like it's gonna be a fun first boss. Not super complicated though. Igira is a little bit more complicated. Do you remember the ball boss in Antorus?
The ball boss in Antorus. Was that
So basically, the conceit there was you would have three ads that spawned, and you would kill one of them on heroic, and it would give the boss like an elemental power. Uh,
yeah. Oh yeah.
and then on mythic, you'd have to kill two of them, and the boss would get. I don't remember if it was both of theirs or he would get the third one. I don't remember what it was, but um, that's kind of what's going on here. So it's actually in some ways very similar to Rashok in structure, where it's
Gotcha.
all run on timers. Actually, a lot of these bosses are all run on timers. There's no spell queuing. Like, thank God, no spell queuing. But it's all run on timers. And when the boss hits 100 energy, there are three puddles that spawn, and which puddle you soak gives the boss an ability. On heroic, you can soak each puddle once, and after you run out, the next time she does the intermission, you just die. Um, but like one of the puddles gives her basically the Rashok leap, where she leaps to somebody and then leaps back. But it's always
Okay.
leaping to like the farthest target, so we were able to bait it. We had a hunter run out and
Mm-hmm.
bait it out, and then because then the tanks were the farthest people away, she just jumped back into melee, which is kind of nice.
Oh, nice. Okay.
There's a big healing absorb that's one of the mechanics, and that
Mm-hmm.
healing absorb, you can do the thing. Do you remember on Prototype Pantheon that people were doing where you would like pixel stack, and then the
Yeah.
waves that went out from you wouldn't hit anybody because you were all in between the waves already? You can do that. It spawns waves, and you can just like all pixel stack and heal it all off with AoE healing,
Ridiculous.
and
Yeah.
none of the orbs hit you. And like the tanks probably have to play bullet hell because the boss has like the sludge fist style, like melee is the next closest target thing. And if you're
Yeah.
pixel stacked with the raid, like somebody's just gonna die. Like you can
Yeah. Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
technically pull it off, but somebody's gonna die.
Yeah.
Um, so the tanks just dodge. And honestly, you don't even need to dodge that much as a tank. You can just eat it. And then the third one is like this meteor slam that
Okay.
you're supposed to group soak. The thing that happens is if you don't soak it, you get a pretty
Mm-hmm.
heavy bleed. Um, and it
Can it
goes.
be removed?
I don't remember. I think it's
Okay.
actually tagged as a bleed, so you could do that.
Yeah.
But you get two of them per phase that you have this active.
Mm-hmm.
And the timers work out so that if you get the bleed from the first one and don't soak the second one, you have two stacks of the bleed, and that's ticking for like 250k a second
Mm-hmm.
on heroic, right?
Jesus.
That's
Okay.
that's not really like doable.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of thing where like maybe you could bubble or bop or evoke or dispel those. The way we ended up doing it is we had everybody except priests and one of the tanks soak the first one. So only the priests and the tank had the bleed. And the next one, the priests and the tank soaked.
Okay.
And so everybody except the priest had to bleed. Oh, the other thing is it stuns you when you soak it. So you need a way to clear the stun, which is where the priests came in because we used 3 master spells. The new cooldown on master
Gotcha.
spell being 2 minutes, that's not reduced, means that you
Yeah.
can't do that on everyone unless you just have a lot of priests.
Yeah.
So we did all master spells on one, and then all single dispels on the other.
Gotcha. Interesting. Um, seems like a cool,
Yeah,
coolish fight.
and like both of those, like that's the first two fights, and honestly,
Yeah.
like seems good, seems good.
Okay.
We get a council fight after that. I'm not gonna talk about it a whole lot. It's like mixing mechanics from Ursoc in Emerald Nightmare with just a kind of grab bag of other pretty common mechanics. And the
Okay.
kind of key thing is you're fighting, you've got a bear, a fey dragon, and a dryad.
Oh, dope. Love
Sounds
it.
like the setup to a bad joke.
Yeah.
And each of them has a special. You use one of the other boss's abilities to break every special. So
Gotcha.
the
Okay.
bear rages and you hit him. Oh, this is the big highlight of the boss, I guess, for a lot of people. You hit the boss with the duck polymorph, which is this polymorph that the Fey Dragon does on
Yeah.
players, and when it expires, it polymorphs anybody that's in range into a duck. When the bear boss is in range, he's vulnerable to it, and that's how you cancel his rage is you duck him.
That's
Um,
funny.
and it's just stuff like that. Like you make the bear charge through the dryad, and then when the Fey does their thing, you have to stand in some of the like vines that are spawned by the dryad to cancel the mind control. And it's like
Gotcha.
not super complicated. The big thing actually that kind of annoys me is it's very annoying to get the bosses to stack. You basically can't get the Dryad and the Fey Dragon to stack, but you can put the bear
Oh.
on one of the two. The bear does have double the health of the others though, so
Oh,
it
wow.
is pretty beefy. And
Yeah.
obviously intended to be like this is the one you single target, and then the others you like either cleave or multi dot. You know, your Shadow Priests, your Warlocks get to have a good time.
Yeah, like slowly burn down. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah. And the last boss we tested was Smolderon. So Gnarlroot, Igira, and Council of Dreams are all like pretty early bosses. Gnarlroot, Igira, literally the first two. Council of Dreams is like maybe 4 or 5.
Okay.
Smolderon is like boss 7. So it's a very big jump. Um,
Yeah.
and this one is one that I was initially concerned going in that we were going to have some wild augmentation stuff going on.
Yeah.
Because one of the, like, this is very much a like patchwork DPS check kind of boss. Um, and you have this damage amp phase, but instead of it just being a damage amp, there are like everybody gets a debuff. The boss consumes that debuff to spawn orbs, and you pick up the
Hmm.
orbs to get a damage buff. And the way the Dungeon Journal was written, it looked like you could just have the same person catch them all and do like 1,000% increased damage. It's not how it works, thankfully. So there's not going to be any shenanigans with like giving all of the orbs to your unholy DK, and then they push Army of the Dead and delete the boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and instead, everybody, it's like Sarkareth. Everybody's got your own souls. Everybody's got your own orbs to catch. If you don't catch them, they give the boss a damage buff, which is probably like it's
Okay.
a 1% one, so it's not like literally just a wipe. But you really don't want to give the boss a damage buff. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but this again, boss very strict timers. There's like a nasty overlap that I think will be fine on Mythic, where you can just plan it out. There's so one of the mechanics is everybody gets a kind of spread circle that does ticking damage, so you don't want to stack with it. And then when it expires, it shoots out tornadoes. And so
Oh.
you don't want to stack with it, but that means the tornadoes are going all over the place. It's the kind of thing that you can probably just control. Like it does depend on your facing, so you can control it to some degree. And figuring out the geometry for that will be part of doing it on Mythic.
Yeah.
But for heroic, there's this overlap where lava geysers also happen at the same time, which are just swirlies that leave permanent puddles. And so you have this thing where you have people just kind of YOLO spreading with their dots, and then the puddles go everywhere, and they're permanent, and can very easily like make the fight like I don't know if it's undoable. Health values on PTR are always just a suggestion, right?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if I haven't looked for kills of this. I'm sure, like if it was practical to kill, I'm sure somebody did it. But the fear would be that like in a pug, people just like not quite being good enough with the positioning of the fire tornado debuffs,
Yeah.
putting lava geysers in places that are just untenable to actually kill the boss, like dramatically reducing your DPS check kind of deal.
Yeah.
So that would be my concern with it. Other than that, like it's basically the flow is you have a group soak. The people that get the tornado dot don't soak. Everybody else soaks. Then you flip it. Everybody else gets the tornado dot. Everybody that didn't already soak soaks. And you really
Okay.
want to soak because if you soak, you get up to 5 orbs in the intermission. That gives you double damage and double healing.
Nice.
So you really, really want that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then it just repeats. Like it's just that. It's very much like a sludge fist. Like there's 3 mechanics and they hurt like hell, and you got to do it right, or you will not kill the boss.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, so that's gonna be basically our. It sounds not exactly like a patchwork boss, but like yeah,
Yeah,
very
it's like the modern
yeah,
the
yeah,
Noya patchwork kind of deal where it's like Sludge Fist is a patchwork, but it's not really patchwork.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like if you go and do Wrath Classic, you do patchwork. There are no mechanics.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
It's more of like there's not that many mechanics. Like one of the mechanics is figuring out where you can cheat on the mechanics in order to do more damage, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, that's awesome. That's all. I mean, it sounds like some interesting, at least interesting heroic bosses. We'll see how they play out in Mythic, but
Yeah.
um,
A number of these bosses do have the mythic changes listed in the dungeon journal, but we don't have mythic testing for another like week and a half.
yeah,
It is September 28th is the first day of mythic testing, and it starts like mythic testing starts with the 4 bosses that we did on heroic this week, right?
yeah.
So
So I'm assuming are like the 4 that are furthest along in their development.
probably
That's
so.
like,
And
yeah,
like all these bosses, like they could, I think, put all these bosses live today, and
yeah.
tuning aside, they would all be perfectly fine. Like, um, they all seem fine. Like I didn't really have any issues with them. Um,
Nice.
yeah, there was no scarn.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's what we like to see. So yeah, we'll see too if they do any. Because that's the other thing is like sometimes they'll do like major reworks of a boss, but it sounds like none of
Right.
these needed
No
that sort of.
scarn, no Council of Blood, nothing like that.
Yeah,
No
that's good.
Halandras.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Well, awesome. Well, one more thing on just the raid, because this is what I like to talk about is in one of the interviews this week. It was actually the interview with MMORPG.com. And it was one of the lead UX designers and then one of the assistant encounter designers discussed rewards from the raid.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big things is that Mythic, I'm gonna always
Fyrak. It's fire.
Fyrak,
It's just fire. Like you do fire and
Fire
then you act.
Fyrak, will be dropping a mythic-only mount, and it will be the first mount that has dragon riding as a non-dragon. So it's a fire owl is sort of the model that will be dropped, and yeah, it drops from Mythic Fyrak. So I'm super excited for this. I love this.
It
I
looks
love
like
mounts.
if you've seen the priest mount
Yeah,
from the class mount from Legion.
yeah,
It's that model re-rigged for
for
dragon
dragon
riding.
riding. Yeah,
I'm trying to find a
yeah. So,
picture of it for the video,
so
but yeah.
it looks really good. But yeah, it was under the MMO RPG interview. I think I put it in the notes, but yeah, so I'm excited about that. There's also I think some skins for existing dragon riding mounts from like heroic, Fyrak, and stuff like that. So we're back into mythic only mounts, and I am here for it, and I love it. Um, so cool. So then I think the next sort of keeping on the rating topics, I think this is key to rating, but it's also a gearing thing, is there was another interview 2 weeks ago with Forbes. And in that interview, one of the senior game designers, Mr. Patrick Scarborough, mentioned that the revival catalyst, which we've all love to hate or hate to love, depends, will be available from week 1 of this next season. So I think we briefly talked about this, but last week, but just to go in a little bit more depth, is that you will, Revival Catalyst week 1 open, so you'll at least have your 1 charge to use in week 1, which I think is cool. And they also mentioned that you're going to get charges for your Revival Catalyst every 2 weeks instead of every week. So you'll get it earlier, but you will overall get charges more slowly. And so we don't know exactly how this works, whether it's you just get 1 week, 1, 3, 5, etc. on the odd weeks, or like we talked about, I don't know if we talked about it on this podcast last week, but or it may be like the crafted item where you get 1 week 1 and then you get the quest plus half a piece
Yeah.
starting also in week 1. So in week 2 you get your second full one, and then it's every 2 weeks from there. So Um, we'll see how it works. It sounds like just based on the interview feeling, this is like a 1, 3, 5, like just odd
That's
numbers
my
weeks.
feeling too.
You get a catalyst charge. So, um,
I
but
am
yeah, catalyst
curious.
week 1.
Yeah, we don't have any confirmation yet of either an Omni token. I think I mentioned this last week. No confirmation of an Omni token. No confirmation of a token from the like AOTC achievement.
Hmm.
So we'll have to see how that pans out because on the one hand, this is nice, and on the other hand, if this also is on top of the guaranteed AOTC token, right? Then
Then it's guaranteed 4 piece week 1 for everybody, basically. If you're pushing,
basically, like
yeah,
you can guarantee two piece extremely easily. You get AOTC, you have your catalyst charge. That's just two piece for everybody, and then
yeah,
from there you get like uh, there's going to be six. Assuming there's Omni tokens as well, you get six bosses that drop tokens,
hmm,
five regular ones and one Omni token, and you get what is it, two tier items, or it's like one tier item per 10 players from those.
yep,
So it's not quite four piece for everybody, but you can get four piece for everybody where it's like a huge upgrade, and most of the
yeah,
people where it's like a good upgrade, and then the people that are like the two piece or like my four piece sucks could just get it on week 2.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I hope as a part of this catalyst change, they just remove that AOTC achievement um, for an additional slot, but we'll see. I'm all for
I
slowing down gear acquisition, and I think
I
that we differ on that.
I think I am like the changes to make the tokens generally take longer to get. I think is fine. I um have I'm not sure how I feel about removing the AOTC token
Hmm.
because of how brittle like and binary like it's not a smooth progression for your set bonus, right? Like you get a huge power spike when you get your bonus. It's
Yeah.
not the same as like being able to like do keys and just like incrementally upgrade your gear every week. And like, oh,
Hmm.
this week I didn't get anything huge, but I got like plus 4 eye levels on like 7 slots. And that's like not individually huge, but it's kind of a big deal. Um, versus like your four set, just like missing it for week after week and then finally getting it, and it's like a 15% upgrade.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So like I'm not gonna say like I don't like hard disagree with you about like removing the AOTC tokens. I could definitely see
Hmm.
them doing it as like yeah you got the catalyst now instead. It's kind of filling that same role, but at the same time it would feel a little bit disingenuous for them to be like yeah catalyst is coming out week 1. We're removing the AOTC token to compensate.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, from a compensation perspective, that's the wrong message. But
Yeah,
no, I think we'll see how this goes. Like I never had an issue with the catalyst, but I understand why people wanted it earlier. So the
yeah,
older timing. So I
yeah.
mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, from a healing point of view, it's always nice. It basically means I'm almost guaranteed 2 piece, right? Regardless of what happens with
Right.
the achievements and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that'll
And
be.
that's there's enough of an unknown here where like we're working out how we're gonna handle tier for tier tokens for next tier. And
Mhm.
like we have like plan A and plan B depending on how the catalyst stuff works and all this stuff. So like hopefully we get enough information to be able to narrow it down to what we're actually gonna do so we can just like figure it out.
Yeah.
That's one of our big projects for our guild during farm is like we wasted a lot of time on loot during our prog last year, like a
Yeah.
lot of time. So we're trying to pre-plan a bunch of stuff so that we just can give out items and not have to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, we've currently in our loot distribution, at least on farm right now, we're all about those raid bots like percentage upgrades. So like get your
Yeah,
sims in and then like that's the major like one of the major factors and decision points at this point.
yeah,
Um so cool. So I think maybe we're almost out of time here, about 2 or 3 more minutes, but did want to just touch on maybe the final topic before we sort of break, which is they are adding a legendary strength axe to
yes.
this raid. So it'll be a two-handed axe. It'll be strength based, which means you've got, your death knights, paladins, warriors, um, that are mostly going to be using this. Um, but yeah, so they're adding this into the game, which, judging by how they've done legendaries in the past, this seems like it almost might be just a random drop that you don't get to assign out.
Well,
Like,
Okay, so
To start the quest, at least to kick it off.
yeah, maybe. There's a thing that they said. We've heard a lot of great feedback from players about some of the frustrations about acquiring rare items and rare drops. There's always a balance of excitement, blah 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 blah. We are working to make sure those items are still exciting when they drop, but that they feel earned and they are something that you can progress towards. This is we have as of last week we had 2 evokers that had killed Sarkareth every week and have like 7 mythic Sark kills.
Yeah.
That did not have the legendary.
Yeah.
One of them got it from heroic this week. The other one still does not have it. They've been in for every single one of our mythic Sark kills. They've killed heroic Sark every week. They've killed normal Sark up until it became clear that they didn't have to kill it. Which again, massive communication failure from Blizzard being like, you don't have to kill this on normal.
Yeah.
They did it on normal and LFR, and it's just like they have sunk all this time into it. They're one of our best players, and they don't have the legendary.
Yeah. Crazy.
And honestly, like one of the nice things for them about the eye level bump next year, that it's going up 39 instead of 26, is it means that they actually wouldn't need to have it for best in slot next year.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
It would be obviously like extremely good early in the tier, because it's a very high item level weapon now, and you don't replace it because of the special effect on it until like a max eye level weapon next tier. But at least there is a max eye level weapon that replaces it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see what that actually means from an acquisition point of view. Um, whether it's like they go back to like a shard system where like you have to collect like 20 of a drop and then you get the item, or if it's similar to the evoker legendary where it's like a single item that starts the quest and
And
it's
then
a
you have to
random
go
like
collect
rare item.
shards.
Yeah, and then you have to go and collect shards just to kick it off. So yeah, we'll see. I am of the opinion that based on all the other loot decisions that they've had, that it'll be sort of similar to the Evoker Legendary. Maybe they'll be a little bit more upfront for like what you need to kill or how you need to kill to get it.
Yeah.
A little bit more deterministic on as a player when you get it, but yeah, no, it's we'll see. It's
Yeah.
another legendary item that healers can't use, and so we're
At the very
relegated.
least, like I wouldn't. I would like to see it guaranteed drop on Mythic. I think
That'd
that's
be fair. If it's an end, if it's from Fyrak specifically,
yeah.
I don't think they haven't talked about where it comes from,
I
but it's
think
from
it's from
Fyrak
Firak. It's his
specific.
axe.
Yeah, that's fair. Then I would say yeah, Mythic confirm Mythic like automatically drops from Mythic type deal. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we'll
like
see.
having it be like if it's not going to be guaranteed from heroic or whatever and it's push personal on heroic so you don't have to assign it or anything, I'm okay with that. If it's just like on Mythic, you kill the boss, you get 1 guaranteed if you've got somebody in the raid that can use it.
Hmm.
And then it's like,
That's
okay,
true.
we had 1 evoker and we would have just been able to give them the item 2.5 months ago.
Yeah, it'd be nice. That would be nice. So
Yeah.
well,
Yep.
cool. I think
I
that's
Yeah, I think
sorry.
that's gonna wrap it up for us today, right?
Yeah, there's a couple other topics we haven't gotten to, but I think we can hold those for next week. They're fairly minor. The big
Yep.
one this week was just making sure we got through Mythic Plus and that raid testing. So
Yeah. So yeah, I think that is gonna be it for the show today. Thank you all for watching and or listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, and you want to support it and me getting my internet connection fixed, you can do that over at our Patreon at patreon.com/Peak of Serenity. And of course, come and join the Discord. It is the best place to come and talk about F1 and Brew Lounge because that is the official, unofficial F1 lounge. And of course, to learn about all the janky interactions between Chi Harmony and Mistweaver's general toolkit.
the rest of our spell, it's great. Fun times.
Yeah. But yeah, that is it for the show today. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.